Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aaron Shack Politics, where we cover the latest news that, mainstream media refuses to cover. And so, one of the biggest things that we've covered on the channel has been stuff related to what's going on in Gaza and the West Bank in Palestine. I want to move over to Bisan in Gaza. The latest reports of a hospital, Al-Ahli Hospital, a Christian hospital,
Hey
being
everyone,
bombed.
this is Bissam from Gaza from the day 552 of the genocide, and a couple of days ago I was here in Al-Ma'madani Al-Ahli or Al-Arabi hospital documenting Shujai massacre when about 55 people got killed, more than 100 people were injured, and reached Al-Ma'madani hospital behind me, the only 100% still functioning hospital after the other hospitals in the north of Gaza Strip like Al-Shifa, Kamal Adwan, the Indonesian and Al-Audi hospitals were raided more than one time, destroyed and out of service for a long period of time.
And we've covered
Al-Ma'madani
that here
hospital
on the
was
channel,
targeted before,
unfortunately.
at least twice before this time, but it was still functioning and receiving hundreds of sick people, elderlies, children every day.
Cancer
Besides
hospital
the high
too,
amount
the
of
only
injuries
one.
and killed Palestinians by the Israeli bombardment here. By the way, the Mahmadani hospital is not the only hospital that was targeted after resuming the genocide. Nasser hospital was targeted, which led to the destruction of a department in the emergency building inside Nasser hospital last week after the 18th of March. But here in the Mahmadani hospital, the emergency and ambulance building, the pharmacy and the laboratory, they were all destroyed. And
Very
a very
specific.
important thing to say is that everything is destroyed in Gaza now cannot be replaced. Nothing is entering to the warehouses of the Ministry of Health. Nothing is entering to the hospitals. Nothing is entering to Gaza. Gaza is under a blockade, is besieged, and everything we lost here. The medicines, the beds, every single tiny tool cannot be replaced. We lost it forever, or at least until the borders are opened and anything is changed.
Yeah.
This is the scene now in Al-Ma'madani hospital. 2 rockets destroyed 2 buildings. The yard where I was sitting only 2 days ago documenting the massacre of Shujai again, and some parts of the church behind me, the Anglican church inside the Ma'madani hospital. You need to know that almost 34 hospitals now are out of service in Gaza Strip. 34 hospitals, clinics, health points are out of service in Gaza Strip, the north and the south. But maybe in the north we need to light more, because this was the last functioning hospital totally destroyed here in Gaza, in the north of Gaza. And by the way, just a historical hint that I really love to add, this hospital is a almost 100 years old hospital in the old city of Gaza. We lost today a very important site, historical site, let me say, and a very important place to give medications and treatment for the injuries and the Palestinians, the Gazans in these horrific conditions. Unfortunately, we lost it. As you see behind me, the amount of destruction. I'm gonna put more inserts. I'll keep you posted.
Once again, that's Bisan from Gaza. Excellent reporting from her. So that is the Israeli army targeting Al-Ahli Hospital, the last 100% functioning hospital in the north. Also, I'm going to show a little bit of footage from today, which, by the way, for Christians, it is Palm Sunday. So I want to pull this up here. Hang on, we're having a bit of a technical thing here. Okay. Couple tweaks that we have to make here. But yeah, this is Israel has bombed Gaza's Christian hospital on Palm Sunday. Hang on, we're having a lot of technical things. So Israel has bombed Gaza's last Christian hospital on Palm Sunday. Let's take a look here. So you can see people fleeing to the tents, the medical tents where they... Nothing, it's over. Keep walking. 2 missiles that destroyed the emergency unit. The main entrance, genetic lab and oxygen storage facility for ICU patients. Once again, Hassan showed us that. Patients were rushed in hospital beds to flee the attacks. They'd been told minutes beforehand the Israeli forces would strike. Not enough time to get people out, honestly. This child died after being taken off oxygen during the rushed evacuation. As you can see, we're leaving. They hit the Baptist hospital and we live around it. We're leaving. What can we do? Like others, we left. One doctor says at least 3 people died while scrambling to evacuate.
These are patients with amputated limbs, oftentimes multiple limbs, patients with traumatic abdominal and chest injuries. These are patients with severe head injuries, head trauma, also, that may or may not have had surgery, and a lot of burn patients that have amputations. They're not able to get up and just evacuate and walk out.
Rescue workers were left searching through the rubble for survivors. As daylight broke, Palestinians captured the full scale of the destruction. And of course, Hassan showed us that. Mass destruction. This huge crater were left in the violent Israeli air raids. This is the mass destruction left in the main entrance. An emergency unit we reported from daily. Receiving injured and martyred. Has been destroyed and put out of service. Now Gaza is without a hospital. The hospital was the life to Palestinian families. Has been put out of service. Right now we die in silence without medical treatment. Without medicine, with ongoing massacres, air raids that don't stop. Everything here is being exterminated. Israel's army says its attack dismantled the Hamas compound in the hospital, which, by the way, no evidence has been found. And they've used this claim for bombing schools and churches and hospitals and refugee camps. Jerusalem Diocese says it's appalled by Israel's attack. Also damaged St. Philip's Chapel. As Palestinian Christians sheltering there prepared to observe Holy Week. Al-Ahli is one of 36 hospitals that have been targeted by Israel since the war began. And each attack could constitute a war crime under international law, of course. And that's where we're at. Just war crime after war crime after war crime. And we're documenting all of it here. So, it's incredibly disturbing, but we're going to also take a look here. About how Israel is expanding illegal settlements in the West Bank and is using violence and demolitions force Palestinians from their homes. Right here.
2023, Israelis were already seizing more and more Palestinian land. That year, in the occupied West Bank, they set up 31 new residential outposts.
So
These are built away from Israeli state-approved settlements. These are illegal under international law.
Right.
It didn't stop there. In 2024, Israelis added 60 more outposts, plus a record 48 new settlements. These are also internationally considered illegal. To what extent is Israel reshaping the occupied West Bank? From 2000 to 2023, Israel annexed more than 2,000 hectares of Palestinian land. In 2024, it reclassified another 2,400 hectares as state land. That means the land can now be used to build Israeli settlements, even though they're illegal under international law. After Donald Trump's election, things moved faster. In the first 3 months of 2025, Israel approved more settlement housing than it did in all of 2024. Violence is also being used to force Palestinians out. Since the war on Gaza began, armed settlers have attacked Palestinians an average of 4 times a day. They're also putting up roadblocks to stop Palestinians from reaching their own homes. Meanwhile, Israeli forces are targeting refugee camps in the northern West Bank. In Jenin, Tulkarem, and Nur Shams, people are being forced out as their homes are destroyed. Demolitions were already on the rise before the war. Now, they've surged. And as military operations continue, bulldozers are tearing up roads in and around the Palestinian refugee camps, making life increasingly unbearable for Palestinians in their own land.
There you go. So once again, it's
October 7th,
it's all against international law that they're building this, and they're already doing it in Gaza. They're creating these buffer zones, and they're destroying stuff. And they did the same in Lebanon on their way out when they were evacuating, as they call it. They bulldoze the roads, they destroy olive trees, and of course you have the settlers that are, invading Palestinian land, threatening farmers, just things like that, just to terrorize people. This is the kind of world that we're choosing to live in right now, and the kind of stuff that our government supports with our taxpayer dollars. So, moving on to sort of the next big thing of the day is that, of course, you might have heard that a Louisiana immigration judge says Mahmoud Khalil can be deported. Now, Mahmoud Khalil is a Columbia graduate and a legal permanent resident. They say that he can be deported after the United States government argued his presence posed, quote, potentially serious foreign policy consequences, which, very vague and could probably be used to push just about anybody out of the country if this becomes any sort of standard here. Now, it includes a memo from Secretary of State Marco Rubio alleging Khalil is deportable because of his, quote, beliefs, statements, or associations that would compromise U.S. foreign policy interests. Khalil's attorney said the judge's decision was solely based on Rubio's memo, which contained no allegations of criminal activity and was a violation of the graduate's constitutional right to free speech that sets a harmful precedent. Despite the government's failure to prove that Mahmoud broke any law, the court has decided that lawful permanent residents can have their status revoked for pro-Palestine advocacy. Khalil's legal team said at a press conference following the hearing, this is a blatant violation of the First Amendment and a dangerous precedent for anyone who believes in free speech and political expression. Now, a removability finding in immigration court means the judge has determined that the individual is subject to removal from the United States due to a violation of immigration law or a lack of legal immigration status. Khalil's attorneys are expected to appeal the ruling. Now, as you know, Khalil was arrested last month by federal agents in plain clothes outside his apartment on the campus of Columbia University following a deportation order from the Trump administration. He's married to a U.S. citizen, a prominent Palestinian activist who played a central role in protests against Israel's genocide in Gaza on his Ivy League campus last year. Now, they're saying that he's being targeted because of his pro-Palestinian activism, and that the court, that Khalil has told the court that he hasn't been granted due process rights and fundamental fairness. Neither of these principles were present today or this whole process. This is exactly why the Trump administration has sent me to this court 1,000 miles away from his family. Yeah, it was a very deliberate thing where they were like, hey, this is probably not, the charges won't go through if we try him in New York, but if we fly him all the way to Louisiana and throw him in a private-run prison that somebody makes a lot of money off of, and you get a Republican judge here that's going to vote in Trump's favor or likely have the same values, you're going to end up with a situation like this. So it says, there's nothing the government can say about my husband that can silence this truth. He's a political prisoner who's being deprived of his rights because he believes Palestinians deserve equal dignity and freedom. Now, Khalil's wife is also pregnant, so she will probably be birthing this baby all on her lonesome, which is very unfortunate and honestly traumatic, which, you know, could affect the baby. Now, it says here, more than 500 students, faculty, and researchers have had their visas revoked this year. So Khalil is the first among this string of students. Of course, the lawyers will continue to challenge the deportation. They're saying here, his attorneys say here, that today we saw our worst fears play out. Mahmoud was subject to a charade of due process, a flagrant violation of his right to a fair hearing, and a weaponization of immigration law to suppress dissent. And that's Mark Vanderhout, an immigration attorney for Khalil, said Friday. Now, they gave him till April 23rd to submit new motions. The team expects several more immigration hearings will be held before the final decision is made, after which they can make an appeal to the Board of Immigration Appeals. So, also one other thing I want to mention is that further here, what happened in immigration court today only confirms the need for the federal court to really intervene and make a decision in this case, because the immigration court made clear today that it won't, and it believes it can't. ACLU lawyer Amy Belcher, one of Khalil's attorneys, also said Friday. So it could have a chilling effect on free speech at colleges and universities in the U.S. Gloria J. Brown Marshall, constitutional law professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, told CNN on Friday. It's chilling to all speech rights when the federal government's memo sets out no criminal charges against Mahmoud, but seems to say one person can affect American foreign policy through student protests. So, I'll leave a link to the article in the description down below, but don't forget to follow us on Substack and TikTok for more information on this. Now, I want to bring it back to journalist Hossam Shabbat. Try to aspect ratios, certain things change. But yeah, want to bring it back to Hossam Shabbat. He was on an Israel hit list months before Israel killed him. He's a journalist, and other Palestinian journalists on that list vow to keep reporting. So as you know, we shared a lot of coverage from Hossam Shabbat, and he was a really nice, really kind, beautiful person who is no longer with us. So in October 2024, Israel published a list accusing Hossam and 5 other Al Jazeera journalists of having ties to Hamas. Al Jazeera denounced those fabricated accusations and said Israel was trying to silence the few remaining journalists in the region. 5 months later, Israeli forces targeted his car and killed him. After Hossam was killed, 4 other Al Jazeera journalists on Israel's list spoke to Dropsite News. Talal Aruki, who was injured in an Israeli attack in November 2024, said that even though he felt unsafe, he was determined to keep working. Despite all the dangers around us, I'm determined to continue my journalistic work. These risks have only strengthened my resolve to fulfill my media mission. I will not retreat from my duty to convey the facts and amplify the voices of the oppressed to the world. These are brave people. Anas al-Sharif is a 29-year-old journalist for Al Jazeera Arabic. He worked closely with Hossam and described his killing as a thunderbolt. Anas was discussing coverage with Hossam less than an hour before he was targeted. Since the beginning of the war, I personally faced several threats and assassination attempts by the Israeli army. I lost my father and several relatives as part of the efforts to force me to stop my news coverage. Despite the threats and danger, I will not and will never stop this coverage until my last breath because I'm fighting for a just cause. So once again, not really the words of terrorists. I mean, it's journalists, okay? So Allah Salama, a 36-year-old journalist for Al Jazeera Mubasher, said Israel's killing of Hossam was a deliberate assassination, and I would agree with those terms. The Israeli occupation army is fabricating justifications to assassinate journalists, and the accusations of terrorism are completely false and baseless. We have done nothing but our professional journalistic work conveying the voice of our people to the world. Therefore, to stop us from being targeted, the international community and human rights organizations must take a stand. Ashraf al-Sarraj is a 26-year-old journalist for Al Jazeera. His wife was expecting their first child when Ashraf's colleague Hossam was killed. I constantly live in a state of anxiety and fear that I might face the same fate as Hossam. I fear being assassinated before I get to see my first child, who I'm expecting in less than a week. Despite all this, I will not retreat from my mission. My work is a duty I cannot abandon, and these threats will not deter me from conveying the truth. No matter the cost, I will continue reporting with courage and responsibility. Dang. Oh my gosh, come on. Yeah. So once again, I want to point out, I believe we're at like 210 journalists that have been killed by Israel, and it just keeps adding up. It's possible the numbers... Oh, well, okay. I actually have some more numbers, but this might not be current because this was early April. But I want to talk about this post as well. So this is, in the past 18 months, Israel has killed 232 journalists. That's more than the combined total killed in the U.S. Civil War, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Yugoslav Wars, and the war in Afghanistan. A lot of press directly targeted. At least 35 of these journalists were directly targeted by Israel because of their work, according to Reporters Without Borders. Here are some of their names. Of course, Hossam Shabbat, 23 years old, was killed on March 24th, 2025 by an airstrike on his car. He had spent over a year away from his family reporting for Al Jazeera Mubasher. And of course, we got to see the video where he reunited with his mom and his family in the north after not seeing them for such a long time. And of course, this is a quote from his message prior to his killing. If you're reading this, it means I've been killed, most likely targeted by the Israeli occupation forces. For the past 18 months, I've dedicated every moment of my life to my people. I documented the horrors in northern Gaza minute by minute, determined to show the truth, the world the truth they tried to bury. Now, Mahmoud Islam Abbasos, age 25, Mahmoud was killed by a drone strike on March 15, 2025 during the ceasefire. He was a photojournalist for Reuters and Anadolu. His work showing the decimation of Gaza was shared widely. Days before he was killed, Mahmoud shared images from the Great Omari Mosque in Gaza City. Amid the ruins, the spirit endures. Mohammed Balusha, Mohammed worked as a correspondent for Al-Mashhad. An Israeli drone strike fatally wounded him on December 14th of 2024. A year earlier, he had been shot and injured by a sniper. He was wearing a helmet and a press badge, which can also be a way that they can target people. So while this is meant to keep you safe and make sure that, combatants on either side are not shooting you, Israel is choosing to directly target these people because they are against their message. This ruins Israel's campaign of calling this a war rather than what it actually is, a genocide and an ethnic cleansing. Okay? A month before the attack, Mohammed reported on premature babies left to die in Al-Nasser Children's Hospital. Israeli forces made the staff evacuate without ambulances. Mohammed found their decomposing bodies weeks later. So once again, just more testimony from how the press is being directly targeted. Now, one last thing I want to share about the press here is this video here. This is the moment a tent housing journalists in Gaza was set ablaze. One of the journalists was seen engulfed in flames. While unable to escape the aftermath of the explosion, Helmi Afakawi was one of the journalists who died in the fire. Journalists Abdallah Al-Attar, Hassan Asleh, and Ahmad Mansour were among those injured in Israel's latest attack on media workers in Gaza. Israeli forces, once again, have killed at least 232 journalists since October 7th of 2023. Which means an average of 13 journalists are being killed every week. That's literally almost like 2 a day. Which means an average, so yeah, of 13 killed every week. It's absolutely insane that this is allowed to happen in our world. Like, not only are aid workers, medical teams being assassinated and murdered, but we're also seeing journalists. I mean, it's very clear to me. It's very clear that Israel doesn't want people to survive. They're targeting places that heal people, right? They're targeting places that heal people. They're targeting places that help people. They're targeting any sort of aid that's being delivered, any sort of medical care, and they're targeting the people that are spreading the message of what Israel's doing and sharing video evidence live and online of what is actually happening over there. They're trying to silence the truth. So this next one here is another journalist talking about how he risked his life to pull his colleague out of the flames in Gaza. Feeling of fear, terror, and impulsiveness. I imagine myself in my colleague's place. I felt that I could save him. It's hard to see your journalist colleague on fire. Instinctively move towards him without thinking. We will continue to deliver the message and show the truth to the whole world. This is our humanitarian duty. Israeli forces bombed a press tent and left journalist Ahmed Mansour engulfed in flames. Early reports said Mansour was in critical condition but still alive. The attack killed at least 2 journalists, Helmi Al-Fakawi and Yusuf Al-Khazindar. What happened yesterday was sudden. It was 3 a.m. We were surprised by an explosion targeting journalists' tent. Once again, it's the middle of the night when people can't do anything about it. And of course, it killed 2 people. And another person in a neighboring tent, in addition to injuring 9 of our colleagues.
محمود عوض من مراسل الجزيرة والصحفي عبد الله العطار والصحفي محمد فايق وعدد من الزملاء. طبعا هؤلاء كلهم صحفيين معروفين.
Journalists are known to be journalists, and everyone who knows them knows they are journalists. This camp is known to shelter journalists in front of Nasser Hospital.
متواجد أمام مستشفى ناصر.
Israel has killed more than 232 journalists during its genocide on Gaza. This is a crime against journalists aimed at stopping the message and spreading sounds and images that convey the suffering of our oppressed. We've been going through a genocidal war for more than 15 months, but despite this, we still continue because we chose this path for our people, in order to deliver our people's message who are enduring a genocide. Absolutely insane. These people are so incredibly brave to be doing the job that they are doing. A lot of them are very young to be doing this type of work and putting their lives at risk, but the truth has to get out there. And so you're probably wondering, like, what can I do? Well, you can share these posts, you can share these videos, you can share articles. Getting information out there to people is key, because if you are informed on this issue, you can clearly see that there's something wrong here, and come to the solution that, wow, we need to do something. And also, boycotting is the other thing. The No Thanks app and the BDSmovement.net. You can head over to BDSmovement.net and see what boycotts are available, and figure out how you can help. Like, you may not be able to boycott certain things because, maybe you only have one supermarket in town, and that's the one on the boycott list. Like, maybe it's not an option for you. It's so much more expensive and out of your way to head somewhere else, and maybe you can't do it. But if you can do it with certain places, you can really make sure that these companies feel an impact for supporting Israel. And of course, we can also rally against our Congress, because obviously AIPAC, which is a foreign lobby, can essentially lobby all of our politicians, Democrat and Republican, which you need to make sure that whatever representative you have, it doesn't matter if they're a Democrat and you think, wow, they're really great, but then they're voting for this evil to continue in Israel, and we're seeing a large amount of children, large amount of press, large amount of women that are being killed in these attacks. And these are direct and targeted attacks from Israel. Now, I want to talk next about what's going on with children in Palestine, because this is really disturbing. Ahmad Manasra was only 13 when Israeli forces arrested him. Now, after almost 10 years of reported torture and abuse, he is being released. In 2015, Ahmad and his 15-year-old cousin Hassan Manasra were accused of being involved in the stabbing of 2 Israelis in an illegal settlement in occupied East Jerusalem. Hassan was fatally shot by Israeli police. Ahmad was beaten, run over, and told to die by Israeli bystanders. Despite finding Ahmad did not participate in the stabbing, Israeli courts dragged out his trial and convicted him of attempted murder. He was sentenced to 12 years after his 14th birthday. His sentence was later reduced to 9.5 years. Israeli authorities have repeatedly placed Ahmad in solitary confinement and prevented his family from visiting him, which rights groups say violates international law, which once again we know that Israel doesn't care one single bit about international law. UN experts consider more than 15 consecutive days of solitary confinement to be torture. Lawyers say prison authorities have physically and psychologically abused Ahmad. He has also been diagnosed with severe depression and schizophrenia. Israel continued to deny appeals for early release despite his deteriorating mental health. Families say his treatment was a form of slow execution. As repeatedly reiterated to Israeli authorities, its ill-defined and overly broad counterterrorism law has led to far too many instances of arbitrariness and abuse. Ahmad's case is yet another morally and legally unjustifiable consequence of the law. In 2016, the Israeli Knesset passed a law allowing children as young as 12 to be charged as adults. These trials usually take place in military courts rather than civil ones. Palestinian minors in Israeli prisons report beatings, starvation, and medical negligence. An estimated 10,000 Palestinian children have been detained by Israeli forces over the past 2 decades. Many of them have been held without charge. And I've talked about this before, how Israel can hold you without charge indefinitely, and they can keep renewing. They can just, every 6 months, they can just be like, oh yeah, we need more time to figure this out here, and that's their methods, and it's cruel and it's wrong, and in America, we have certain rights, and in Israel, none of these things fly, yet they still like to call Israel a democracy when actually it's an ethno-apartheid state, where only one ethnicity is allowed to have all the rights and all the privileges, while the rest are allowed only to suffer and to be illegally imprisoned. Now, I want to also talk about what's going on with schools. And this is in East Jerusalem. Israeli forces forcibly entered schools in the neighborhoods of Shuafat, Silwan, Surbaher, and Wadi al-Jos. And hopefully I'm saying all those right. I'm learning. Ordering those to close within 30 days. Around 800 Palestinian children could be transferred to Israeli schools. Now, here's why that's bad. Israel's school system is segregated, right? Doesn't sound very democracy, It sounds like what America used to be at a certain time, right? One for Jewish children and one for Palestinian children. In the Israeli school system, Palestinian children face discrimination, less government funding, fewer teachers, and poor learning facilities. Hundreds of Palestinian schools in East Jerusalem went on strike after Israel's East Jerusalem municipality tried to censor and edit Palestinian textbooks. They also tried to impose an Israeli curriculum. The Israeli government passed 2 bills banning UNRWA, the UN agency that provides services for Palestinian refugees, from operating in Israel. UNRWA operates schools for Palestinian refugees. The law came into force in January of 2025. It is an Israeli-run curriculum that Palestinians say ignores and erases Palestinian identity. That's from Noor Odeh, Al Jazeera correspondent. And so it just shows that there are 2 different types of curriculum. There's what they teach the Jewish kids, and then, of course, there's what the Palestinians learn, which I would argue is more in line with the truth here, because we're seeing that Israel teaches you to hate. It teaches you to become part of Zionism. It teaches these kids to become these little settler kids that go around throwing rocks at people and saying bad things and spitting at people, and eventually to become the settlers that walk around with guns and terrorize Palestinians and set their farms on fire and stuff. And if there's any bit of retaliation or backtalk, those people are either immediately jailed or killed. So, this is the state. And it's, everyone says, oh, Israel's this democracy. Everybody gets to vote. The Palestinians had their election. They chose this. And the Israelis have their elections and they choose this. And it's like everyone's free to pass between areas. No, there are certain roads for certain people, only certain cars on certain roads. There's checkpoints everywhere. There's long lines. There's roads that people can't go on. Some people aren't even allowed to go out the front doors of their house. And of course, as we've seen, there's segregation in schools. There's segregation all over the place. And this is not what a free society is, where truly all people are created equal. Now, I don't pretend to say that America is perfect here, but I think we've at least learned some lessons, and we can say that there has been some progress. And Israel has a long way to go in that respect. So, once again, I want to thank you all for watching Aaron Shack Politics. Don't forget to check over here at our Substack. I'm going to pull it up. You can find all of our videos here and on YouTube as well. We have a lot of content available here. Sorry, we got some new stuff that I'm doing here. But yeah, we have articles here, we have videos, and just follow us there. There's a lot of politicians, podcasters, news, writers. A lot of people are really starting to move over to Substack because Twitter doesn't allow certain messages to get out. They're very pro-Israeli over there, and I've actually had one of my accounts has been completely suspended for posting my video about Sabra, the Israeli comic book character that is a genocidal maniac and should not be allowed. Now, I also want to take this time to note, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Blue Sky, Aaron Shack Politics. Check us out on Twitter, because I do want to have some interviews and some panels, and I want to ask people questions and stuff, and I want to really try to find some solutions. I've been listening to a lot of different panels and different discussions of, like, how can we actually help? How can we actually do something for these people across the world? And I want to be able to give you guys some actual resources, and to be able to, like, kind of vet these things, because, unfortunately, with every tragedy, there are people that might take advantage. They might make their own sort of, sorry, not a Kickstarter. Yeah, like a GoFundMe. And have pictures of Palestinians, but then you see, oh, it's going to, like, Jim Bob in California. It's like, come on, man. So, we need to be able to vet that, if we are sending money, or if we're, like, teaching English, utilizing online resources, whatever it may be. Like, these kids are going to need education. They're probably going to have a lot of trauma. They're going to need some form of, like, therapy. And some of these kids don't even have a family. So, I mean, there might even be adoption type stuff could come up at some point. I mean, we just don't know where things are going to go. And, of course, for the people that want to remain in Gaza and the West Bank, especially in Gaza, I think the prices for food and stuff have become excessively inflated, where people are really desperate, and things are getting very dire over there. So I want to figure out ways to help. I want to have more conversations, but, like, the reason I haven't published many videos as of late is that I've been on TikTok, I've been listening, I've been on panels, and I recorded one. I was on a Santana Jones panel, and I had some moments where I got to talk about how America First is bad, and also on Palestine and what's going on in Gaza. I got to talk with someone that just seemed, just a little misinformed, like, not like full-on Zionist, but like someone who just knows this and doesn't really know the whole issue or a whole lot about what's going on. And I just asked questions and tried to figure out, like, where they're at, and I tried to correct, some of the record on some of that stuff. And so I don't really think, I'm listening to a lot of debates, whether it's against Zionists or MAGA, and it doesn't feel like it's leading us anywhere. Like, like, if you win the argument, or if there's the perception that you've won, or, maybe occasionally you convince someone, like, oh my gosh, you've shown me all these facts, all this information. Like, maybe this guy actually isn't supporting, my actual best interests. Like, what hurts me when I'm at the dinner table, right? Like, how does Trump actually help you in your day-to-day life, right? It's not about the billionaires. It's not about how, it's going to trickle down. They're going to magically create more jobs for us if we give them even more tax breaks than what they already have, and how they don't pay their fair share into things like Social Security. So, the money is there. We just need stronger leaders to make the right decisions here. So I want to thank you all for watching. Don't forget to follow us on all these places. Substack, Blue Sky, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, the whole deal. Just make sure you're following in multiple places so you don't miss anything, because sometimes the algorithm is not kind to us, and I'm also, like, constantly appealing stuff as well. So, like, if there's ever, sort of areas where it's like, oh, wow, Aaron hadn't posted a video, it's because I'm maniacally trying to appeal some of these videos and actually get them out there to more people. And I usually just have to have an actual person look at it and go, okay, well, it's not what the AI or what someone who, like, falsely reports a video says it is. Like, I'm trying not to show stuff that's, like, horribly traumatic here, but I have seen much worse than what I'm showing you here. So just know that this is sort of the light version of the genocide. So once again, I want to thank you all for watching. Don't forget to boycott. Don't forget to share these videos, and share other people's videos. They're covering this issue, because the information needs to get out there. Because you inform people, then they boycott, they protest, you do all these things all at once, put a lot of pressure on our politicians, on our businesses, and businesses around the world that are supporting Israel and the IDF. It's got to stop. It's got to end. Genocide is not right. And if you think about it, you know, you don't want to be we always say like, oh, during World War II, I would totally be there fighting the Nazis, or, oh, I'd be working in the factories, or, oh, I'd be a journalist writing about what's going on, right? And if you wonder what you would be doing in World War II while an actual Holocaust is happening that we didn't know about, but this one we do. This is a modern day Holocaust, and we know it's happening. We can see it happening, but just because the people aren't white, we don't determine that they are enough. They don't matter as much as, say, the Ukrainians, because they're white with lighter colored hair, right? They look more like us, Americans, right? And we always try to, have the default white American, right? But, that's not necessarily true. That's not helpful. So, once again, I want to thank you all for watching, and just keep in mind, whatever you think you would be doing during World War II, you're doing it right now. Profound thought to leave you with. So, once again, take care, be safe, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.